Hello, I just ran a couple errands. I'm gonna go get myself a fun drink and then I am going to start the reaction. See you guys soon. Pink straw. Fun drink is acquired. Don't worry, it's delicious. Hi, I'm Steph. Welcome to my channel, Cursed or Crushing It, where I tell you if I think that books are cursed or crushing it, along with just my general review of it and my take on the book and on the overall story. I do not plan to present any spoilers. Any parts of the story that I do describe or I guess give away in a sense, they are not like major plot points. It's more of just like giving you as a reader a chance to explore maybe a little bit more than you would with just the back of the book and like the little blurb on the back of the book, to see if this is a book that you would want to read. Today I'm going to be talking to you about The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Starting with who is in this book, our main character is Oraya. She is a human living in a vampire world, or is it her world and the vampires are just living in it? I don't know, man. Second, we have Oraya's adoptive father, who is also the king of the Hiaj vampires. His name is Vincent. The story between Vincent and Oraya is kind of interesting. We see like very small glimpses of it throughout the book. And what we know is that as a child, when Oraya is first approached by a group of vampires during a siege on her city that includes burning down all of the residential human districts, including where she lives, Oraya is found in this rubble of this residential building, like an apartment building, and the vampire king approaches her. She bites him, like literally just like ha 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 on his little fingy, and he effectively is like, yeah, that's pretty metal. You're coming home with me, little serpent. And just a side note, so when I first saw like that Vincent calls Oraya his little serpent, I had like that Leonardo DiCaprio gif moment where he's like, oh, you know, like they said the title, like, oh, that's part of the title. That's pretty cool. But also like on a much realer level and a much more, I guess, like important level, I really hate this nickname for her, partially because I'm introduced to her as like an adult woman, but I kind of hate this nickname. I feel like it didn't age well for Oraya. It would have been fine up until like maybe 10 years old, but like after that, you need to just find something else. I don't know. So the vampires in this universe are separated into 3 distinct houses: the House of Blood, the House of Night, and the House of Shadow. The House of Night is divided into 2 warring races or factions. These are called the Hiaj and the Raihn. The Hiaj are a type of vampire that has bat-like wings, and the Raihn are a type of vampire that has feathered wings, more like a bird that we would see today. One thing that's important to note for the Hiaj and the Raihn vampires, although they have wings, they can choose to present them or not present them. So they can basically magic away their wings and they can put them back on like when they want to fly somewhere. And that's no issue for any of them. They are 2 warring factions or races, 2 warring types of vampires. And each one has like a leader that's defined by an air mark. So the Hiaj have a distinct air mark and the Raihn have a distinct air mark. And one thing that's really important to know about all of this is that no one likes the House of Blood. If you like the House of Blood, no you don't. Reconsider your opinion. They are largely ostracized by the other houses. They also have their own kind of magic. It's called blood magic, which is very spooky and very powerful. And I think that like secretly that's part of the reason why the other vampires don't like them, just because they have this very intense kind of magic, but also like they're a little cocky. So like it's fine. And then the House of Shadow, they don't really get a ton of like page time in my opinion. The House of Shadow is like an enigma. Like we don't talk about House of Shadow same way we don't talk about Fight Club, you know? The House of Shadow is just kind of like in their own area, like across a body of water, chilling, apart from everyone. Relatively non-problematic, but yeah, no one likes blood. You don't like blood. I don't like blood. We're not allowed to. It's fine. And so once we like actually start this book and start dipping our toes into the story, the first major event that we come across is a gala for all of the contestants that are competing in a competition called the Kajari, which I will explain in a moment. The thing that's important to know is that Oraya will be competing in the Kajari. But during this gala, Victor, Oraya's adoptive father, tells her basically to size up all of her competition because all of the Kajari contestants are going to be there. So while she's like sizing up all of our contestants, this book, with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, introduces us to our male main character. And you can tell that it's him because she is standing from across a crowded room and she notices this dark, moody, handsome, big man just across the room. What is he doing? He's looking at artwork. Not only is he looking at artwork, he's looking at artwork that others would pay no mind to. So he is our dark, misunderstood, moody, large, presumably muscly male main character. We later find out that his name is Raihn, which is awesome. It has an H in there. The H is silent. But yeah, so this is Raihn. We'll find out later. And she sees him. He catches her eye just from across the room because he's just so attractive and mysterious. And he appreciates art that other people don't appreciate. So, like, what else are we supposed to do, right? It's a romance book. He is unequivocally thrown in our faces multiple times as like, don't worry, this is the male main character. This is our love interest. Just don't worry about it. And so we find out that in this beginning of the book, while they're going through the gala and all of that, we find out that our main character, Oraya, who is a human, just to remind you, she is about to embark on an adventure in the form of entering the Kajari. Now, the Kajari is a competition that can be summed up best as the Vampire Hunger Games. It has a lot of similarities. There can be one winner. It is a very bloodthirsty kind of competition. And I think that's where the similarities kind of end, actually. So the games take place every 100 years because vampires are immortal, of course. So, the time scale has to be bigger. It takes place every 100 years. There have been 20 of these games before. And the way it's set up is this competition is a series of 5 trials that take place over 4 months. We have one trial every 3 weeks. And the winner gets a wish from Nyaxia. Nyaxia is the goddess of vampires, thus Crowns of Nyaxia, the series as a whole. And additionally, Nyaxia, the goddess of vampires and the goddess of like blood and gore and like all of this, very intense and moody stuff, she is kind of the one that puts on these games as well. Now, one thing that makes this very like Hunger Games-esque to me is the fact that there's a bunch of competitors that are in like a blood sport. They're literally fighting to the death to win this competition. However, this is also like a live spectator sport. So every single time they are competing, there is a live audience that is there, that's betting on them, that's cheering for them or against them. This is not like, just between them and the goddess. This is very much like a spectator and like entertainment kind of thing. The differences for the Hunger Games, though, there's a couple of them that are more obvious. So everyone that is competing in the Kajari, they're all adults. So vampires, right? They're immortal. And these vampires are like, 200, 300, maybe older. Like they're multiple hundreds of years old. They're very well into adulthood as far as we as humans are concerned. And this is also completely voluntary. So they all tell Nyaxia, hey, I want to compete in your trials. I want to compete in the Kajari. And she's like, okay. So like this is very much voluntary. It's still a spectator sport, but everyone's an adult. So there's a lot of similarities to the Hunger Games, but they definitely like stop short of how like intense, I guess, the Hunger Games gets. And so one thing to know about these games, there are lots of rules. Some of them change every year and some of them don't. And it's kind of hard to tell which ones will, which ones won't. But there are a couple exceptions because like there are like a handful of things that will always happen in the games. One of the things that will always happen is what's called a half moon challenge. I think the titles of all of the challenges are kept the same, but so at the half moon challenge, which takes place halfway through the competition, half of the contestants will die, but also everyone in that challenge will need an ally for it in some capacity. And that's the part that changes every year, the some capacity part. One of the challenges, additionally, will always mirror the story of Nyaxia. That's just kind of how it be. There is one like really critical story for her, and they play that out effectively. And then another consistent rule is that the competitors are always housed at a place called the Moon Palace. That is about as far as that goes, because the Moon Palace is super cool. I love it. I would love to go visit there, honestly, sometime if it was like empty, like the off season. One of the other 99 years where the games aren't happening. But the Moon Palace is kind of like this living entity. It's this living like building that is there. It's changing. It can grow rooms, it can contract rooms, it can repair itself, it can do anything, presumably. I don't know, much more than my house can do. My house just kind of sits here. But one thing that's interesting about the Moon Palace and about like the kind of this competition, it's hard to tell if this is a rule that is because of the Moon Palace or because of the Kajari in general. But there is actually a curfew for everyone that's competing. So they can spend all of the daytimes. So when the sun is up inside of the Moon Palace, that is effectively their curfew. And so Oraya, our main character, makes herself a home in what is described as like the creepiest greenhouse I've ever like heard of. Like the plants are kind of alive, but also not. And she just kind of like sections herself in between like a couple pots of plants, it sounds like, to stay there during all of the daylight hours. So Oraya chooses to stay in the greenhouse because that is one of the only places that she can stay and be safe during the curfew, which is during the daytime or the daylight hours. In this universe, these vampires cannot go in the sun. They get burned by the sun. Obviously humans get burned by the sun too, right? Sunburn, that's terrible. No one likes it. Wear your SPF, even if it's cloudy outside. Very important. You can get burned on a cloudy day. But the vampires in this world, they will get like burned like you see in movies, right? Like there's steam coming up, they're like in agony. So she makes her home in the greenhouse so that she doesn't have to worry about vampires killing her like while she's trying to sleep. One of my primary notes about the Moon Palace was that it's kind of like a sleepaway camp, except everyone wants to kill each other. I've been to a few sleepaway camps in my lifetime, and usually it's a very fun, like everyone's really stoked to be in like sleeping and like sharing space with like 20 people. Granted, I've only gone to sleepaway camps for like a week at a time, so not 4 months, that's for sure. So in terms of the competition, for rules that change from year to year, one of the major ones that is usually highly anticipated by both the contestants and the spectators is whether or not the contestants can kill each other outside of trials. And you can't do this every year, but sometimes you can. So that is a huge question kind of going into these games. And at some point, you're pretty much guaranteed that the competitors are going to be starved out. But that can also change from year to year on timing, on all kinds of stuff, really. But timing tends to be like a big one. So like which trials it falls between. And so just going from what is going on to where this is all happening. In this universe, there are two primary landmasses that we're introduced to. The one called Obitrates, which is where all the vampires live, which is where we are for this competition and for this story. And then there's another place that's basically like the human lands. I don't think that a name is like properly given for that place, but we're also not very concerned about it. But it's a place that's like run by the humans. And confusingly, in both places, humans and vampires both live there. It just kind of is indicating who is in charge of which area. So in the vampire place, in Obitrates, I'm not sure. Humans are effectively treated like cattle. So as you can imagine, with vampires, they drink blood. Shocking, I know. Humans, as a result of that, though, they're pretty much treated like cattle, and they are literally farmed for their blood by rich vampires. It's kind of like a courtesan relationship, where like the court will bring in lovely gals most often for the court, and then the court enjoys the company of the gals. Here it's pretty much the same, except they are getting sustenance from these individuals, and they aren't necessarily going to be like the gals. On the other end of that, in the human place, humans are generally not treated like that. They lead pretty full lives. They can ascend, they can be business owners, they can own farms, they can do all kinds of stuff. And like in the beginning of this novel, Oraya sees what appears to be her one human friend very briefly. And this human friend picks up a conversation that it seems like they've had a lot of times, where she's like, hey, you know that you could go to the human place and like have a much better life, right? Like you should totally consider doing this. I want you to do this. You deserve better. Overall, like my takeaways from this book, without getting into really any spoilers, is that this book kind of has the subtlety of a brick wall when it comes to like foreshadowing, introducing characters, all of that kind of stuff. There's really no room for interpretation about how you're expected to feel about them. For example, our male main character, he is introduced very much as, this is your male main character, you are going to love him and cherish him, like let's get to know how beautiful he is from afar. Same thing, there's another character that you are meant not to like. From her introduction, it's like, this person's the worst. How could anyone like this? They don't say that. But like from the beginning, when this person is introduced, like our main character, Oraya, and everything is through her point of view, she's just like, I'm not a fan of this gal. So that was my overall takeaway. I would rate this book generally as definitely crushing it over Cursed. It is just like a little bit cursed in my opinion, but like not so much that it would like push it away from being crushing it. There are a few lines, there's a couple things that just really make me laugh, and those kind of give me like that cursed feeling for it. In terms of like the vampires comparisons that I want to do, really my greatest frame of reference for things and my ultimate comparison is always going to be the Twilight vampires. So shout out to Stephenie Meyer, love her. But comparatively with the Twilight vampires, the vampires in Crowns of Nyaxia are squishy. That's like the best way I can describe it. Like I feel like with Raihn's cheek, I could go up and just hi Raihn. And with Twilight, right, with Edward Cullen, you're not going to be pinching his cheek. He is effectively a sentient block of granite that just defies physics in terms of like being able to like move his arms and legs and like move about in the world. Like Edward Cullen can't have his cheek pinched, but Raihn and Vincent and like pretty much any of these vampires, I feel like I could squish their cheeks. So like that to me says a lot. Because that's just a no-go so hard for the Twilight vampires. Additionally, these vampires bleed. They have super dark blood, like it's almost black, but it's still kind of red. They also have heartbeats. The heartbeats are described as being slower than the average human heartbeat. However, these heartbeats respond to stimulus. So if they are fighting, if they are excited in any way, their heartbeat will pick up. And another really interesting thing about the vampires in this universe that doesn't have a lot to do with anything else, these vampires sleep. They get tired. They have sleeping hours. And I thought that was really remarkable because, again, my primary frame of reference is the Twilight vampires who don't sleep at all. The last thing, they are warm. That's obviously, for comparing to the Twilight vampires, at least, like I do. that's a pretty big deal, because the Twilight vampires, like, literally, they're described as people who haven't even, like, encountered them really as the cold ones, because they are that freaking cold. So, you know, take that how you will. So some amazing quotes that they have in this universe, just like generally like sayings, like here, right? People are like, oh my God, that's crazy. Or, you know, whatever. I think their version of that is sun fucking take me. So that's pretty cool. I like that one a lot, actually. I made that like a status of mine at one point while I was reading this book. And then I also really like the one Ix tits. Top tier. I don't even know, like, who is Ix? I forgot. But her tits, I could never forget. Never ever. Forever in our hearts. So from here, I kind of want to go into a couple spoilers, because I have a lot of feelings about how this book ended. And I'm also currently reading the second one, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, or something very similar to that. And I have a lot of feelings about how this book ended. So I'm going to chapter out this video, and I'm about to start talking about spoilers for that chapter. So if you haven't read this book and if you don't want to be spoiled, skip this chapter. So the first spoiler, Mish is amazing. I'm not really going to expand on that at all. You didn't need to meet Mish for yourself. I don't want to ruin actually any of her direct character development or anything like that, but Mish is so fun to meet, and I think everyone should meet her if you haven't read this book already. So yeah, Mish is amazing. And then during the first trial, when we have this big battle against demons, which this is unique to this year, no one ever knows how this first trial is going to go. We see for the first time the arena that they compete in with all of the thousands of live spectators. There's just a huge wall of people just completely encircling them. The arena that they're in gets sectioned off into different pieces, and I don't know exactly how big the groups are. I think it might be groups of like 5 competitors versus like 5 or 6 demons that are like running around having a crazy time. During this trial, Oraya gets badly hurt, and afterwards she retreats to the greenhouse, because that's effectively the only safe place for her to stay, but she is definitely bleeding out. And then our male main character, being a male main character, he comes to rizz her up in the greenhouse, and she stabs him in the leg. And then to which he says, hey, do you want to be allies? You seem like a pretty cool ally. And to which I say, okay, crazy. That seems like a great ally to have right there. Yeah, for sure. Definitely choose Oraya as your ally after she stabs you in the freaking leg. But they end up becoming allies, and they're working together. They train together. They bond. They have this really cool like bonding montage. There's lots of yearning between the two of them. They want each other so badly. And then basically from the moment that her and Raihn become allies, Oraya just like goes off the rails in terms of like all of the training and advice and everything that Vincent ever told her to do in this competition and about this competition with her competitors. He just falls completely out of her mind, except when she goes to meet up with him like every single night in this competition for him to give her medicine. Like he's just like sitting, it's just like this like cycle of like, oh, I did this thing, and he's like, why did you do that thing? And she's like, oh, I'm allying with Raihn. And he's like, why would the fuck would you ally with Raihn? This is what kind of, why are you making these choices? Why are you doing this to me?
Why?
And so he hates it, if you can't tell. But from there, like as she's moving through this and she's dealing with the consequences of her actions, she is like having all these aha moments of like, whoa, I guess Vincent gave me that advice because he didn't want me to end up in this situation that I've now made for myself. And then she continues, like then she gets out of that situation by not following his advice even more. And then she's like, whoa, I wonder why he gave me that advice. And then like she just falls into this loop, and it's like really funny to see actually like kind of playing out in real time. And I'd imagine that for parents it's like exactly what it feels like to have a child, right? Like, oh, you shouldn't You shouldn't go outside without sunscreen. Then your kid goes outside without sunscreen and they get burned and they're like, oh, I guess this is why I needed sunscreen. Like, it's just, oh my gosh, it's actually really funny to see it play out. But then most of the other trials are kind of unremarkable. We find out for the Half Moon trial, they of course have to have allies like they do every year, and the capacity for like allies this time is, so like the way the thing is set up, there's like a big like mountain or like hill kind of thing in the middle of the arena, and Oraya's on one side, her ally Raihn is on the other side, and they both need to like battle through these like packs of demons to reach the top of this hill that's in the center, and then from there they go into like this portal that takes them back to the Moon Palace. That's their completing the trial. That's like the finish line effectively. And so no surprise, Raihn and Oraya make it through. We find out that the reason that half, at least for this competition, we find out that the reason why half of the contestants are going to die in the Half Moon trial is because the portal that goes back to the Moon Palace from the trial, it is set to close after a specific number of people go through it. So that's pretty fun. But yeah, like I said, Raihn and Oraya make it through the portal in time before, the half go through. And then it becomes like this whole thing of like, oh no, we're not allies anymore. And then like you quickly find out like, oh no, the house is actually going to be starving all of them now. So there's no more blood, there's no more food, no one can leave. They have like this force field kind of set up around the house. No one can do anything except sit there and starve and wait for the next trial. And then surprise, the next trial is that mirroring of Nyaxia's super critical story. The critical story is that she had to find a lover and then get out or like escape them from a jail or something like that. Something very close to that. And so this trial is mimicking her grabbing him and escaping from the jail. And so they like get plucked down into this forest, but surprise, the forest is full of poison and everything in it is poisonous, and don't eat anything in the forest because you're going to die because it's all poison. And what better place to drop a bunch of starved individuals but a forest full of stuff that's going to kill them if they eat it. So she like very rapidly puts two and two together on everything is poison, don't trust it. All the food is poison. All the food is poison. And she finds Raihn while she's in there. He helps her out. She helps him out. It's very allyship, even though they really shouldn't be allies anymore. And then they have like this whole very cute scene in this cave where Raihn is like, oh no, I'm starving, I can't do anything, all I can do is smell your blood, Oraya. Also, you're welcome for saving you, but like I'm very weak now. He's like suffering, right? And Oraya is just like, oh my god, I love this guy. Maybe? Kind of. I don't know. Hot take, she probably just trauma bonded to him because the Kajari seems very traumatic. But anyway, she's like, oh no, my man's, he's starving. Like, there's only one way to help him. And you already know how she's going to help him, right? Like, what is the one thing she has to offer him? Blood. So she allows him to drink her blood. And at that moment, that precise moment, we find out that vampire venom makes people horny. Unequivocally very horny. And so Raihn is like, all right, you need to control yourself though. And so like she's having all these feelings as he is like sick, like sucking her blood. And in the back of her mind, she's like, wow, this is a terrible idea. To which I say, yes, this is a terrible idea, Oraya. But he's like sucking her blood. She's like super into it. And then she kind of is like, no. Well, no, she doesn't say anything. She wants him to keep going. And then he's like, no, I don't want to kill you. And she's like, you could though, effectively. And he's like, no, thank you, ma'am. I would rather have you as an ally than dead. Which is like so sweet considering he's a vampire that was starving, that was drinking her blood, like not 2 minutes ago. And he drank just enough to like nourish himself. And immediately after she pulls away and like, you know, is like healing herself from her bloodletting that she just did, she's like, wow, Raihn looks really good. Like, and like, yeah, of course there's like that lust like tinge, right, of like, oh my gosh, he looks so good, he looks like a snack, versus like the wow, he actually looks better, like his color's coming back, he can stand up, he can like form words and sentences and think. Like, she's definitely commenting on both of those things at the same time, I would say. Once they do that, they are able to make it out of the forest, and then when our final trial comes up, it's just like a battle royale. It's literally like, okay everyone, remember this arena that you've been competing in? There you go, have at it, kill each other please and thank you. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, Oraya wins the entire thing, which means, because this is a battle royale where everyone is battling to the death, Oraya kills Raihn. Oh no. But lest we forget, Oraya gets one wish from Nyaxia. Guess what that wish is? Well, guess what that wish is supposed to be? Oraya is expected by Vincent, he's coached her this whole time, she is expected to request a Coriatus bond with Vincent. A Coriatus bond is where magic between two individuals, magic, power, strength, like all that kind of stuff, is shared between two individuals, and they become bonded like for life. And she's supposed to ask to be a Coriatus bond with her adoptive father, Vincent. So what that means is she would get some of Vincent's powers and Vincent would get some of her powers, which she does come into powers after she starts the competition. She's able to wield like this very interesting kind of fire that's unique to this world. And what she does not do is that. Instead, what she immediately asks for, because her boyfriend that she thinks she's in love with, that she's really just trauma bonded with, he just died in front of her eyes. She just killed him, actually. And she's like, oh no, Nyaxia, I wish I didn't win. And so then what happens? But Raihn wakes up. He is healed, because if she didn't win, that means that he didn't die. And so he wakes up and Nyaxia is like, JK, here you go, new winner. What do you want your wish to be? And he's like, I want the king of the Rishon to come back. And she's like, okay. And so guess who the king of the Rishon is? But freaking Raihn. It just like bloop. So their air mark is on their back. That's why I'm gesturing back here. He just bloop. Air mark turns right on. And she's like, cool, there you go. You're welcome. And then she just flits away. She's like, bye. Have fun, everyone. You know, hope you learned lots today. And so Raihn immediately goes and kills Vincent, because Vincent is the you know, warring faction, the wrong type of vampire in charge. Like, he's competing with him. So Raihn goes and kills Vincent, which means that a new air mark for the leader of the Hiaj vampires is going to show up relatively soon. And guess where that shows up? Oraya. And it's like right here too. It's like right on the front of them, with like their clavicle and stuff. And she's the new heir. And then everyone's like, whoa, how did that happen? That's so crazy. Turns out this entire time, Vincent was actually just her dad. Adoptive, like, he adopted her, yes. But she is a half human, half vampire, and Vincent is her father. And she now has the heir mark because she is his heir for, you know, the vampire king. And immediately all of the Rishon vampires are like, whoa, we need to kill her, this is awful. And Raihn is like, no, I'm gonna do something worse. She's gonna be my wife. Which is like funny that you're threatening someone with marrying you, because like he must be a terrible husband. But he like immediately starts talking like, yeah, I'm gonna do all these terrible things to her, just like Vincent did to Rishon vampire's king's wife. He's like, I'm gonna do to her exactly what he did to our king's wife. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know, that's chill, man. And like, she's literally standing like 10 feet away or something. She's not hard of hearing at all. She's standing like 10 feet away from these people, as he's talking, like, oh yeah, no, don't worry, I'm just keeping her around because like we don't want a new heir to pop up, and you know, I'm just gonna assault her every day forever. It's fine, guys, like, don't worry about it, she's mine. And she's like hearing all this and she's like, wow, that's cool, I don't want to do this. And that's where the book freaking ends. You know, he's just like, yeah, don't worry, I'm gonna violate this woman. And she's like, this is not good. This is not what I was hoping to happen. So, God, it really goes out on like a whimper. But I will say, having started the second one pretty much immediately after reading the first one, which I would highly recommend doing, it's really cool to see how that shakes out. And right now, I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm like 10% in. So, take that as you will. The last thing I want to talk about here is a bonus review. Kind of. I guess if it's my first one, this isn't exactly a bonus, but I was intending just to do one, just so you know. So this is the second one that was not intended from the get-go. I do want to talk about a novella that is kind of set around the same time of this, and like maybe just a little bit after. But it's the novella called Scorched Roses. And Scorched Roses, in addition to being a tongue twister, is a novella, like I just mentioned. It is set in the human place. So we've like gone across the sea and we are looking at totally different people, actually. They have nothing to do with what's happening at The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I started reading it. I was like, what is going on here? Why do I care about any of these people? Who are they? I mean, you find out by the end, like, how it kind of all fits together, but also not really. Scorched Roses is more important as you continue on in the series later. So it introduces you to a couple concepts and characters that become a much bigger part later in the Crowns of Nyaxia series proper. So, like, the Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, and the books after that. They're all really long. I can really only keep 2 of these in my head at a time. But so this novella, it's set over in the human world. It follows a human, again, a gal named Lilith, and she is a researcher. She is very like autism coded, which I thought was a really cool depiction, actually. She just like doesn't get people. And I really connected with that because sometimes like I just don't get people. So I thought that it was a really cool representation of that. And she is very much like a researcher, like a sciences kind of researcher. So I connected with her on that as well, because I'm also like a sciences background. I do research as like my 9 to 5 kind of. And what she's doing is she's investigating this plight upon her city. So she's over in the human world, which means that she is at the mercy of like the 6 gods that make up what's called the White Pantheon. And the White Pantheon is the 6 gods. That's it. And her town in particular praises one of the gods that's in charge of like agriculture and like fate and stuff like that. He is kind of a fickle god though. And so if he just decides one day that like your town isn't doing what they're supposed to, he's just like, cool, okay, apply it upon all of your crops. Hope you have fun. And so that's basically what's happened in her village. They're an agricultural place and all of their crops have turned to dust and no one can grow anything, and it's really sad and everyone's starving. And there's also a disease that's going around that basically turns everyone into dust themselves. She mentions like the churches being like kind of overrun with funerals, and that every single time they have a funeral service throughout the day, they have to sweep more and more dust out for the next funeral that's going to come through, just because like these people die of like a dust disease. Like they crumble away to dust. It's really interesting to read it and see it. And then, so in order to combat this, our gal, Lilith, she approaches like the one vampire in the area, like this. He's like a pariah of the town. They're like, oh my God, this strange and like very scary vampire up on this like hill, like out of town. They're like, oh my God, he's the worst. At one point, their plight is getting so bad that they all take like pitchforks and like torches and stuff. And they're like, we're gonna go get that vampire. We're gonna get him out of here so that our God likes us more. And spoiler alert, it does not go well for anyone, but she like develops this kinship with this vampire, and because she is convinced that he is the key to coming up with a cure for it. She doesn't necessarily want to like go after the gods to ask them for help on this, because they're the ones who like damned this town in the first place. So she's like, okay, well, if you guys aren't gonna like solve it for us, I'm gonna solve it, like, you're welcome. And so she starts working with the vampire there. His name's Vale. She starts working with Vale to try and come up with a solution. And yeah, they work together on it. And I think that's all I want to say about it without getting into spoilers for this novella, because it is pretty short. But it is really cool. It's worth reading. And having started the second book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series proper, I can see why it was recommended that I read this book like in between the two of them. So highly recommend that one as well. That one is also definitely crushing it. Not cursed at all. But yeah, that is all I have to say about these two books. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Huge shout out to my bookish friend Vanth. She is the one that recommended I read this series in the first place. I've enjoyed it a lot, as I have told you. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I think in the next one we'll probably read one of my book of the month books, but we'll see where the week takes us. So thank you so much. I will see you all in the next one. Bye.